Let's build a simple mob head farm. This will also act as a generic mob farm while you're waiting on the rain. So not only will you get tons of mob heads, but you'll get all of the other drops that mobs provide. This is also totally spammable. Anytime it's raining, you can just sit there and light up creeper after creeper to get tons and tons of heads. Approximately 1,500 heads per hour, plus all of the other drops that mobs provide, such as gunpowder and bones. Now, of course, it's probably not going to rain for an hour straight. So the rates for 5 minutes of use during the rain are going to be as follows. Each of these were the rates for 5 minutes of use. So you'll still get over 100 mob heads in just 5 minutes. Now, we also have a toggleable Trident killer so that we can AFK this with looting while we're waiting on the rain. We'll get about 5 double chests of non-stackable items, more than 1,000 bones, and about 850 gunpowder, plus all of the other drops that mobs provide, including a ton of flesh per hour with looting. Starting off, we can build this anywhere that normal mobs will spawn. We do want to have zombies, creepers, and skeletons spawning in the farm, so basically anywhere except for over a river or in a special biome that doesn't have one of those mobs. We also want to make sure that there is nothing within about 120 blocks in the air around where we build the farm. And if you're playing on the default simulation of Sim 4, we're going to go up by at least a full stack of scaffolding. But if you're playing on a higher simulation distance, such as 6 or more, we need to go up by 2 full stacks of scaffolding. If you're not sure what your sim is, just go up by 2 full stacks to be safe. Then build a platform that is 3 and 5. Place a comparator on subtraction mode right there, with 2 solid blocks, a dust, then a repeater facing the other direction on a 2-tick delay. So poke that repeater 1 time. Connect it with dust to the side of the comparator, and place an observer that is looking at that dust. This is the clock for our collection system. But now we want to semi-surround this observer in solid blocks, so that we have 2 holes here in the middle. On the outside hole, we want a dropper facing toward the middle, then a dropper facing up, behind that observer. Then 4 hoppers that are feeding this outside dropper. So all 4 of these hoppers will be pointed toward that dropper. Then a 5th hopper pointed down into that first one, with solid blocks that are semi-surrounding the bottommost hoppers. Then 2 more blocks right here, leaving a single hopper revealed. Place a rail with a minecart with hopper on top of that, and then come over here to this comparator, and crouch on this comparator, and very carefully break out the rail from under the cart. Then break out the block next to that, place a rail, place a cart, and break out the rail, and then do that a 3rd time. If you don't place them one at a time, breaking a block each go, they will end up shoving each other out of the way. But then we want hoppers pointed into this top one, surrounding these carts. So now the carts are totally encased, and these new hoppers are feeding that one that was pointed down. Then we need a 5-wide platform that can be as big as you want. Then place 6 slabs starting on top of these 3 hoppers and going above your platform. Now semi-surround these slabs with obsidian, above the carts and next to the first 3 slabs. Place a temporary block there in the middle with an obsidian above it. Then along the outer perimeter, go up by 2 more obsidian, so that we're left with these 2 middle chambers that are 2 blocks tall, and have a floating obsidian there in the middle. Then place 3 more here on the top in the front, so that we have 1 block of air underneath the obsidian above the slabs. Then above the outer slabs, place 3 obsidian with 1 on each side, and a row above that. So it's 5 by 2 there in the front. Now everywhere else surrounding these 2 center holes, we're going to go up by 3 more obsidian, including the corners and the middle, leaving us with this figure 8. Surrounding the right hole, we need to go up by 2 obsidian orthogonally from that hole. Then around the left hole, we can just use any sort of solid blocks, so that we're left with this. So it's 8 blocks tall, with a 2x5 sticky out part in the front, with a 2 tall tube on the top. Now on the side that isn't obsidian, we're going to go out by 4 glass, and then expand this to be 3 wide, so it's touching the obsidian. Place 3 solid blocks on the end, and a 4th solid block right there with a button on top. Now go up by 2 solid blocks, surrounding these holes, so that we have these 2 doorway type things that lead to the holes in the top of the chamber. Then surround this platform in a row of blocks, stopping at the button, then go up by another block, but cut it in above the glass, like so. Then in the middle, up at the top, place 5 blocks going across. Then on the right doorway, place an upper slab to shrink the entrance to 1.5 blocks. Place a sign on the side of that slab. Then while facing to the left of the sign, we're going to place 3 iron trapdoors on the bottoms of these blocks, because we want these iron trapdoors to open away from the sign and the button. But then in the opposite corner from where the sign is, we want a bucket of water. And that water should flow all the way over to our holes. But it will flood the left hole, so we need any kind of button to block the water, because we want the water to flow up to the edge of the holes, like so. Now, over here next to this button, we want to go back or out by 3 glass, then solid blocks diagonally up from the glass surrounding it to create a canal. Then blocks right here, 1 block away from that. And then in these holes, we're going to go out and up by 2 more blocks to create these little divots. Then inside of these divots, we're going to place tripwire hooks connected by string, which will be aligned with the center glass. Then 2 more rows of blocks here at the top to create this hallway. Then a bucket of water above the sign. And it should flow above the sign, then above the button, then under the string. Starting above the water, place a row of blocks to act as a ceiling for the hallway. Go up by 2 blocks right there, and then out by 3 in this direction. Then diagonally up at the end of that, so that we have 5 blocks open down here. Because we're going to place 2 powered rails on this side, then a regular rail, then an activator rail, then a powered rail. Then 2 levers that are turned on to power the activator and the double powered rails. Then fill in these gaps to make a pathway over to the holes in the top of the obsidian chamber. Then next to the rails, go over by 5 blocks and up by 1. Then surround this in blocks to create a 2 tall canal that leads over to the hole in the obsidian chamber. But on the side above the rails, we want to build that wall out of glass that extends all the way over to the doorway to that hallway that has the tripwires in it. Then place a bucket of water on this far side, and it should flow all the way up to that hole and stop. Place a block up there, and 3 more starting next to that powered rail to create this little hole right here. Then place in a minecart on top of that powered rail, which should get pushed over to the D-powered rail. Then above our 2 tall water canal over here, we're going to cap it off with glass. Just glass above some of the water to prevent the creepers from bobbing up and down. Now over here, on this sticky out block that has the tripwire on the side, we're going to run dust from that block over to the tops of the blocks that have the iron trapdoors on them, so that the tripwire will open these trapdoors. Then cover up the left part of this hole with 3 blocks, so that we only have a 2 wide hole next to these 2 trapdoors. Then cover up this hole as well, and that's it for the mob transportation section. Now we need the redstone to power the rail. So from this corner slab right here, we're going to go forward by 1 and then over by 4. So from that corner slab, forward by 1, then over by 4. Then on this 4th block, we're going to go up by 3, place a button on the side, and a torch on the top. then a block with a torch, and another block. So there should be just enough room for you to walk on top of this little platform. And we're going to extend it out over underneath these rails by 2. On top of this platform, we're going to zigzag some dust so that one of the dust is above the block that has the torch underneath. Then place a repeater right here on a 2-tick delay, so poke that 1 time, then a repeater facing that way over there with no extra delay. Then a comparator in that hole going into a solid block with a sticky piston on top of this block, and then a lightning rod on top of the piston. Then in front of this repeater, we want a solid block, then another one diagonally up from that. And that second block should be underneath the activator rail. We want torches on the front sides of these blocks so that the repeater will toggle the first torch, which will toggle the second, and activate the depowered rail that the cart is on. So the second torch will be underneath that powered rail that isn't being powered by a lever. But now we need to throw a channeling trident on top of the lightning rod. So a trident that has channeling on top of the lightning rod, like so. And that's it for our creeper charging and our redstone. So now come over here to this 2 wide hole, then opposite of the dust, we're going to go up by 10 blocks and place a magma block on the 11th. So up by 10 with a magma on the 11th, aligned with that 2 wide hole. Now on this side that's missing a block, we're going to go up by 5, then place 2 temporary blocks going forward and out, so that we can place an observer looking away right there, and a dispenser looking toward the hole. Then break out that temporary block. So there'll be 2 blocks of air under the block that has the observer on it. Then place 4 blocks, 3 dust, and a repeater in front of the observer. Then blocks above this dust down here. Jump on these blocks so that we can place sticky pistons next to that dust, with a torch on the left sticky piston and a 3rd sticky piston next to that torch, like so. Then go up by 2 more blocks on top of these 2, place a 4th sticky piston on top of that one with a solid block above the torch. So you will be left with this when you're done. Now over on this side, the other missing wall, we're going to just go up with blocks until we're aligned with those sticky pistons. Then in front of the sticky pistons, we need 2 more blocks right there, a block next to that bottom piston, diagonally down, and then back up, with a glass above that hole. Then blocks on top of that glass down there, so that we can go over diagonally down from where that hole is. Then carry this out by 3 more blocks, 2 blocks on that side, and then 5 blocks too tall on this other side. Then at the end of these 4, we're going to go over by 1 and extend the walls so that they protrude out by 1. Place any type of wall in that hole so that there's air underneath that wall. And it should be aligned with that observer and that dropper down there. Then place a bucket of water in that trench and it'll flow over to the wall. Then an iron trapdoor right there, diagonally down from the glass, so that we can have a piston next to that trapdoor and above that trapdoor, like so. Dust on top of the lower piston, then a temporary block next to the piston, so we can place 2 solid blocks with a redstone torch on the side of the bottom one that will activate the pistons. Then 3 blocks wrapping around this lower one, a 4th block next to this top sticky piston, 3 dust on top of these 3 blocks, then a repeater right here on a max delay, which should turn off those pistons. Then a repeater on top of this block, facing away from the pistons, a dust down there, and a block above that dust. Then go up by 2 more blocks on top of these down here, and 1 on top of the dispenser, just to extend our tube a bit. Now come down here, and underneath this corner right here, we need to go down with solid blocks all the way down. So this pillar should be 3 blocks away from the other pillar that we made, or 4 blocks away from the slabs. break out the bottom block, place a lever on the second one, then alternate between blocks and torches going all the way up. So there should be a torch on that corner block right there. Then just keep alternating until the topmost torch is aligned with the dust, but on the side of a block. That torch should be turned off, so the repeater in front of the observer should be turned off. But place a bucket of water inside of that dispenser, and then go turn on your lever. And if everything's correct, those pistons should be clocking, turning on and off, and the water should be dispensed, flowing toward that trapdoor over there. Turn off the lever so that the pistons stop moving, and place 2 blocks right there. Then in front of these 2 pistons, we want to throw in a trident that is centered with the piston, as centered as we can get it, preferably with Impaling 5. It doesn't have to have Impaling 5, but that will kill the mobs faster. Then go up by 2 blocks around your hole, and on each side, we want to extend it out by 7 more blocks. So it should be resting right on top of that topmost piston. Then go up by 1 at the end. So each arm will have 8 blocks running into a 9th block. And then just turn this into a canal by surrounding it diagonally up with more blocks on the front and the back, so that we can place a bucket of water at the end of each arm that should flow right up to that hole and stop. Inside of that hole, place any 2 coral fans. These are technically optional, but they will help. Then extend your magma to be aligned with the water, and go out by an additional row so that the magma is 2 blocks wide. Then raise up that wall by 1 block, then go up by another row of blocks, except surround the magma this time as well, so that you're left with this. Then place a row of buttons on this front wall, because we want to place buckets of water on top of the back magma going all the way across. So the water flows forward toward the hole, but gets stopped by the buttons. Then aligned with the magma, we want to go out by 7 blocks, then diagonally up, so that you have an arm on each side that is 8 blocks long, going into a 9th block that is diagonally up, and also 2 blocks wide. Then surround this to make a canal, and go up by 1 everywhere that there is already a block. So go up by 1 and create the canals. Then place 2 buckets of water at the end of each arm, so that the water flows right up to the edge and then stops. Like so. Now you want to go up again, but totally aligned with the canals. So it's going to be just a long rectangle aligned with the canals. So now we have this little gap right here that is 2 blocks tall, so that all mobs except for spiders can fall down in this hole. But the spiders will get killed by the magma because they can't fall down a 1 wide hole. Now aligned with the water, we're going to go out on each side by 7 more blocks and fill it in, so that we have 2 wings that are 8 blocks wide, totally aligned with the water. Then go diagonally up all the way around and make this wall 2 blocks tall, so that each of your 8 wide wings is surrounded by a 2 tall wall. And then cover these platforms in scaffolding, so that you have 2 8 wide platforms of scaffolding that is aligned with the center water canal. And place any type of coral fan right there in the hole. Now you don't have to use the coral fans, but they will help. But do not use trapdoors. Either use coral fans or nothing at all. But then place a row of water above the scaffolding while aiming at the back walls that are the farthest from the center canal, so the water flows on top of the scaffolding toward the center canal. And make sure not to flood any of the scaffolding while you're placing the water. But then cover all of the water in solid blocks. So a solid block directly above all of the water. And then repeat this process. So we need a 2 tall wall surrounding our 2 8 wide platforms, coral fans in the hole, scaffolding on top of the 8 wide wings, with water above that on the back row, flowing toward the center. And just keep repeating this process until you have made 6 total layers. So 6 layers of scaffolding, coral, and water. And don't put the solid block roof on top of the final layer of water. Oh, but also people in my Discord remind me that you can use ice in order to place rows of water easily rather than using buckets. I just always forget about doing that. Now I need to decide between tinted glass and leaves. Tinted glass is easier and less laggy, but way more expensive. So it's up to you. But either way, we need to go up by another row of solid blocks along the outer edge, and then directly above the water, fill this in with either tinted glass or leaves. Regardless of if you used tinted glass or leaves, place slabs along the outer edge to block spawns. But now if you used tinted glass, you're totally done. You can skip ahead to the collection system. But if you used leaves instead of glass, there's a few more steps. Because we need to completely block out light, but we also need to maintain sky access for that sticky piston down there. So we need a lightning tube. So we need solid blocks to create a tube where the hole of this tube is directly above that sticky piston. So you'll need to pillar up from down there and then just fill this tube in all the way up, including any gaps that you have. It needs to be a solid tube that doesn't let in any light whatsoever, where the hole of that tube is directly aligned with that lightning rod and that sticky piston down there. And then we need to go up by 20 more blocks. So 20 blocks up from our existing leaf roof. Then once we're up here, we need to build a frame out of solid blocks that is aligned with the walls of the farm. So that is aligned with those slabs down there. And then fill this frame in with leaves, so that there is a leaf above every lower leaf. So we have 2 leaf platforms that are perfectly aligned. And then from each of the corners, we're going to go out by 10 blocks and then connect these diagonally together. We're just shaving off the corners to save a few blocks, because we need to connect all of the corners together, 10 blocks from each corner, and then fill it completely in with solid blocks, except for our lightning hole. The reason we can't just cap off the farm with solid blocks is that would block surface spawns and dramatically lower the rates. So we need to make the farm dark while maintaining surface spawns. Last but not least, it's time to build our storage system. So we need to expand our platform off in this direction by about 20 blocks or so. You could make it bigger or smaller, it doesn't really matter. But we're going to place our first storage chest right here, 2 blocks away from the scaffolding, or 4 blocks away from the Redstone Dust coming out of that comparator. Now we need to decide how many vertical chests for each item we want to have. I typically have 3 chests per item, but it's up to you. But that will dictate how tall this item elevator over here needs to be. So we're going to fill in this 3x3 area with either glass or solid blocks. I just like using glass so I can see the items going through the system, but you could use solid blocks if you want to. It just needs to be 1 block taller than your tallest chest. Then place 7 more blocks or glass surrounding the middle 2 blocks going forward. Then go forward by 3, over by 1, and place a pack ice with a button on it. And that pack ice should be diagonally from the chest, 1 block above it. So 1 block behind, over, and up from the chest. Then just build some walls around this to create a canal, so that when we place a bucket of water back there, it will flow forward and over and be stopped by the button. Diagonally down from that pack ice, we need to place a row of 17 solid blocks, so that starting aligned with the chests, we can place a total of 16 comparators separated by a block. So 2 sections of 8 comparators. Now, diagonally down from that row, we need another row of blocks with repeaters that are pointed toward and aligned with each comparator. So 2 sections of 8 repeaters. Then 2 blocks behind the repeaters, we need another row of solid blocks with redstone torches on the front side, powering all of these repeaters. So we don't need this middle row right here, just 2 sections of 8. Then we want glass above every single torch, and then solid blocks in front of this glass next to the comparators, with redstone dust on top of all 3 of these back rows. So dust on top of all of this stuff. So now we have a total of 16 item filters. Now we need to have hoppers that are pointed at all of these comparators. So it might be a little awkward to place, but we need to aim at the comparators and place hoppers that are pointed toward the back. Then in this hole, we need pack ice with a button on it and continue placing our hoppers. And we could always replace the comparators with a temporary block if you're having trouble placing those hoppers. But then just surround these diagonally up with blocks or glass so that we can create a canal to hold in the water. Place a water bucket right after each of the buttons so that the water flows all the way across the hoppers, all the way down. Now just place chests aligned with your other chests, aligned with each of these cells. So we'll have 2 groups of 8 chests, however tall you wanted them to be. But then place hoppers pointed into the backs of all of these chests, and these hoppers should be aligned with the hoppers that have water above them. So as it is, it will sort up to 16 different stackable items. If we want it to sort more, we can add more of these filters. But either way, we need to decide what kind of overflow we want it to have. If we want to save all of the non-stackable items, we can just have hoppers here at the end pointed into chests to act as an overflow. This would catch any items that get skipped, that get full, or that aren't being sorted for, as well as the non-stackables. If we don't care about the non-stackable items, we could just put lava down here at the end. Now this lava would destroy all the non-stackables, all of the items that we're not sorting for, any items that get skipped, or any items that get full. So it's up to you whether or not you want to have an overflow, or expand the storage even further, or just have some lava. Either way, we need to program our filters. So here are all of the items that this farm can produce. Inside of our filter hoppers, the ones that are pointed backwards at the comparators, we need to place in the last 4 slots a single item that will never be in the farm and that can stack to 64. Then in the first slot, we want to place the item that we're sorting for. And there will always be 41 of that item trapped in the first slot. That's what makes it overflow protected. I might recommend having 2 filters for rotten flesh, because it produces more rotten flesh than everything else. But just go through, place in your 4 filler items, and then the item being sorted for in the first slot. And now when it comes to the mob heads, odds are that you don't have these yet. So you could either leave some hoppers empty and then just clean it out once you get some heads, or you could fill it up with filler items so you don't have to clean it out later on. Just keep in mind, if you're using lava, that any items that aren't being sorted for will get tossed into lava. Once you have some heads, you can place 40 of the filler item in the second slot. This will make it to where only 2 of the heads are trapped in the first slot. Now, this is no longer overflow protected, meaning that if this item fills up all of the chests, it will break the entire item sorter. So only add extra filler items for rare items that aren't going to fill up, such as the mob heads. For everything else, just keep it with 4 singular filler items to make sure it's overflow protected. Now also, 16 filters is not technically enough to sort for every potential item this could give you. But the remaining items are either rare or kind of trashy. So it's up to you whether you want to add more filters or just add an overflow. Now, of course, we need a place to keep us safe while we AFK. So we're going to place a block above this comparator, dust, and repeater, then just carry these blocks all the way up to the water canal. Then we're going to go forward by an additional block, so that we can create a doorway and place in our door. This is where we'll AFK when using the Trident killer, but we need a way for the experience to make it to us. So we're going to replace this block right here that's directly above our safe room with any kind of wall. This will allow experience to fall down through the crack that the wall creates. Anytime we want to use the Trident killer, we just turn on this lever and grab our looting sword. But we also need to clear out the mobs that are in the obsidian chamber. So go ahead and kill all these by hand through that little crack, and if there's any creepers in the loading dock up there, just spam press this button to load all those creepers into the chamber, and then kill them by hand. Because if we don't, it will count against the mob cap, which in turn will lower the rates. As long as you turned on the lever before you cleared out the chamber, no more mobs will fall through, because the Trident killer section closes the drop chute, so all the mobs will get killed by the Trident killer. So after you clear everything out, we can just head over to our safe room. Once inside, we'll be close enough to the water stream for the experience to get pulled toward us, so all of it will fall through that little hole created by the wall. To actually farm heads, we need to wait for the rain, because we can only charge creepers during the rain or during a thunderstorm. But once it's raining, we can simply press the button to charge and load a creeper. Then we use flint and steel to detonate the charged creeper, causing it to blow up all the mobs in the chamber, thus dropping their heads. And we won't take very much damage at all from the explosion. I have no armor on whatsoever, and I only took a half a heart of damage. So we can just keep detonating creepers without fear of getting blown up. I made all of the bottom of that top part out of glass, so that we can see where the mobs are, and get a feel for when we should detonate the creeper. As long as you have another creeper waiting to be loaded in, you're pretty good to go. You can just detonate the creeper and load in the next one. Because the faster we kill the mobs, the faster new mobs will spawn. But if you're running low on creepers, like if there's no creepers up in the loading dock and you only have one in the chamber, well then you might want to wait and try to kill as many mobs as you possibly can with that single creeper. It's just all up to what you see. Like if you see a bunch of mobs that are about to fall down into the chamber, well then wait to detonate. Or if you see that you have lots of creepers in the reservoir, well you can just go ahead and blow them up back to back. That's fine. Or like if you just want the creeper heads, of course you can load in these creepers. You don't have to load them in one at a time. You know, you can just load in all the creepers so that you get more creeper heads. Now, not all of the creepers will actually get filtered out, so you're still going to be getting creeper heads without manually loading in singular creepers. Just if that's your focus, if you want creeper heads, then just load in more of the creepers, rather than being conservative with your charged explosions. Now, an important thing to note is that if creepers are not being loaded into the chamber, it could be because that minecart got destroyed by natural lightning. Now, the odds of this happening are crazy extremely low, because natural lightning has to strike that lightning rod at the exact moment that the minecart is picking up a creeper for it to break. So you might want to build like a staircase or something to get up here, just in case that does happen in the heat of the moment. It's just kind of a byproduct of like, we need to charge the creepers with lightning, but we also need to pick up the creepers with the minecart. Now, again, it's only from natural lightning. As long as this is a wooden button, no matter how fast you press the button, you yourself cannot break the minecart. It's timed in a way to keep the minecart safe. But there's just not much we could do about natural lightning. I know that a lot of people have trouble with tridents falling through. So if you're one of those people, what we can do is place a grindstone underneath where the tridents are. And this will at least catch the tridents if they decide to fall through the farm. Now, we should still take the normal precautions when it comes to preventing tridents from falling through, such as lower your render distance down to 16, and always turn off the trident killer before you leave the area. I have a video on this specific topic as well if you want to check that out, but it basically boils down to reducing the overall lag, both for yourself and for the area. But if nothing else, grindstones make a really good band-aid. But back to the topic of mob heads. I was so devastated when I figured out that we can't use dispensers to ignite the charged creepers. You know, that prevents us from making it fully AFK. But I was discussing things with Anawan, and we came to the conclusion that maybe you can use the player as the detonation trigger. Now that sounds incredibly dangerous, but definitely worth a try. So I'll experiment and get back to you. But that's all we got for this episode. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. Always remember that you are totally awesome, and above all, don't forget to have fun. Bye-bye!